Captain Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was 3 days away from Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Empire. This would be humanity's first official meeting with alien civilizations. The weight of representing his entire species pressed on his shoulders. "Captain, we're getting some interesting readings," said Minji Lee from her engineering station. Her fingers danced over the controls as she studied. "The data. The aliens have been watching us since we entered this system." Tae-hyung Kim looked up from his communication panel. "I'm picking up dozens of ships hidden behind asteroids and moons. They think they're being sneaky, but our sensors can see them clearly." Hyerin Choi, the science advisor, turned her chair to face the captain. "They're probably just curious about us. According to our files, they've never seen human technology before." Jinwoo nodded. The humans had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. Ever since they discovered faster-than-light travel, they knew they would eventually meet other intelligent species. What they didn't expect was to find an empire of nearly 1,000 different alien races. "What kind of ships are they using?" Jinwoo asked. Minji checked her readings again. "Pretty standard stuff. Fusion engines, basic energy shields, chemical weapons. Nothing too impressive. Don't underestimate them," Hyerin warned. "They've been traveling space for thousands of years. They must know things we don't." Far away, on a hidden observation ship, Council Prime Veltar watched the human vessel through his own sensors. His 4 eyes studied the readings with growing confusion. The ship didn't look like anything he had seen before. "Commander Quindos, what do you make of their technology?" Veltar asked. The military commander's tentacles clicked against his control panel. "It's strange, sir. Their ship is using some kind of drive system I don't recognize. It's not fusion, not antimatter, not even quantum tunneling." "How are they moving, then?" "I have no idea. Our sensors show no engine signatures at all. It's like the ship is just willing itself forward." Veltar's skin changed color, showing his worry. In 12,000 years of galactic civilization, he had seen every type of space drive ever invented. This was something new. "Maybe their sensors are broken," suggested Thaisara, the chief scientist. Her insect-like features showed doubt. "New species usually have very basic technology. They probably just developed fusion power and think they're advanced." "Keep watching them," Veltar ordered. "I want to know everything about these humans before they arrive at Nexus Prime." Back on the Harmony's edge, the crew went about their daily routines. Jinwoo reviewed his diplomatic notes, while Tae-hyung practiced alien languages. Minji worked on ship maintenance, and Hyerin studied the data they had collected about the Galactic Empire. "You know what's funny?" Minji said during their evening meal. "The aliens seem really excited about meeting us, like we're some kind of mystery." "We are a mystery to them," Hyerin replied. "They've probably never seen humans before. We might look very strange to them." Tae-hyung laughed. "I hope they don't think we're ugly. That would make diplomacy harder." "I'm more worried about their expectations," Jinwoo said. "What if they think we're more advanced than we really are? Or what if they think we're too primitive to talk to?" "We'll figure it out when we get there," Minji said. "Our technology works." "Fine. We got here, didn't we?" The next morning brought them closer to Nexus Prime. The planet was massive, 3 times the size of Earth, with rings of space stations orbiting around it. Thousands of ships moved between the stations like busy insects. "Wow," Tae-hyung whispered. "Look at all of that." "It's beautiful," Hyerin agreed. "Think about how many different species live there. How many different cultures and ideas." Jinwoo felt both excited and nervous. This was what humanity had dreamed of for centuries, contact with alien life. But now that it was happening, he worried about making mistakes. "Incoming message," Tae-hyung announced. "It's from Nexus Prime Traffic Control. Put it through." The main screen showed an alien with blue skin and 6 arms. It spoke in perfect English. though with a strange accent. Human vessel Harmony's Edge, you are cleared for approach to Docking Station 7. Please follow the guide beacons and maintain current speed. Thank you, Nexus Control. We'll follow your instructions. The alien paused, studying something off-screen. Human vessel, our sensors are having trouble reading your drive system. Could you please transmit your engine specifications for safety purposes? Jinwoo looked at Minji, who shrugged. Tell them we're using a spatial displacement drive, she said quietly. Nexus Control, we're using a spatial displacement drive system. There was a long pause. Could you repeat that, human vessel? Spatial displacement drive. Another pause. Longer this time. We're not familiar with that technology. Could you explain how it works? Minji leaned over to Jinwoo. It's pretty simple. We just ask space to move us from one place to another. Space usually agrees. Jinwoo stared at her. That's how our faster-than-light drive works? Pretty much. We found out that space is actually very polite. If you ask nicely, it will bend itself to help you travel faster. Human vessel, the traffic controller said. Please report to Station 7 immediately upon docking. The Council Prime wishes to speak with you personally. Understood. We'll be there soon. The screen went dark. Jinwoo turned to his crew. Did anyone else think that conversation was strange? They seemed confused about our drive system, Hyerin noted. Maybe they use different technology. Or maybe, Minji said thoughtfully, they don't know that you can just ask space to help you. We only figured that out 5 years ago. As the Harmony's Edge approached the massive space station, alien ships moved out of their way. Jinwoo noticed that the alien vessels were much larger than his ship, but they moved slowly and carefully. His ship glided smoothly between them like it was dancing. Captain, Taehyung said, I'm getting a lot of chatter on the alien communication channels. They're all talking about us. What are they saying? They're confused about how we're moving. Some of them think our sensors are jamming their equipment. Others think we're using some kind of stealth technology. Jinwoo frowned. We're not hiding anything. They can see us clearly. I know. But they say their instruments can't detect our engines working. It's like we're flying without any power source at all. That's because we are, Minji said. Space is doing all the work for us. As they docked at Station 7, hundreds of aliens gathered at the viewing windows to watch them arrive. Jinwoo could see dozens of different species, all pointing and talking excitedly. Well, he said to his crew, I think we've made an impression already. Let's just hope it's a good one, Hyerin replied. The docking process completed with a soft thud. Outside, they could see alien officials waiting to greet them. The first contact between humanity and the Galactic Empire was about to begin. Jinwoo took a deep breath. Whatever happened next would change everything for both humans and aliens. He just hoped they were ready for it. The Grand Assembly Chamber of Nexus Prime was the most impressive room Jinwoo had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness, and thousands of alien delegates sat in rows that curved around a central stage. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. Jinwoo walked onto the stage with his 3 crew members. The chamber fell silent as thousands of alien eyes focused on the humans. He felt very small in this massive room filled with representatives from nearly 1,000 worlds. Council Prime Veltar stood at a tall podium that adjusted itself to his height. His 4 eyes studied the humans carefully, while his translator device converted his words into English. Welcome, humans of Earth, to the Galactic Council. We are honored to meet the newest species to join our community of worlds. Jinwoo stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you, Council Prime. We are excited to learn from your wisdom and share what we can offer. Veltar's skin changed to a pleasant blue color. As is traditional with new species, we would like to see a demonstration of your technology. This helps us understand how we can work together and what knowledge we might exchange. Of course, Jinwoo replied. What would you like us to show you? Something simple. Perhaps your basic tools or weapons. We are always interested in seeing how different species solve problems. Jinwoo looked at his crew. Minji stepped forward with a small device in her hand. It looked like a simple metal tube with a few buttons on it. This is a standard engineering tool, she said, her voice echoing through the chamber's translation system. We use it for basic construction and repair work. Commander Quindos leaned forward in his seat. His tentacles moved with interest. What does it do? It helps us fix things or make new things when we need them, Minji explained. She looked around the stage and spotted a block of metal that was part of the decorations. May I use that? Veltar nodded. Please proceed. Minji walked over to the metal block, which was about the size of a chair. She pointed her tool at it and pressed a button. The metal began to glow softly. The alien delegates watched with mild interest. They expected to see some kind of heat, beam, or cutting tool. Many species had similar devices, but what happened next made the entire chamber gasp. The metal block began to change shape, not melting or being cut, but actually rearranging itself. The atoms moved and shifted until the block became a perfect crystal sculpture of a flower. The crystal was clear and beautiful, catching the chamber's lights and throwing rainbows across the stage. Thisara stood up from her seat, her insect features showing shock. How did you do that? You changed the atomic structure of the metal, without any heat source. Minji looked confused by the question. I asked it to become something prettier. Metal is usually happy to help if you ask nicely. You asked it? Thisara's voice cracked through the translator. You spoke to the metal? Not with words, Minji explained patiently. I asked it with the tool. The tool knows how to talk to atoms and molecules. They like being useful. She pressed another button. The crystal flower began changing again, this time becoming a small computer. Lights flickered on its surface, and it started displaying information about the chamber's temperature and air quality. The alien delegates were no longer just interested. They were staring in complete silence. That's impossible, whispered Commander Quindos. You cannot change elements without massive energy. It takes the power of a star to turn one element into another. Hyarin stepped forward to help explain. Actually, it doesn't take much energy at all. The atoms want to be arranged in the most helpful way possible. We just show them what would be most useful, and they rearrange themselves. Atoms don't want anything, Thisara protested. They're just particles. They follow the laws of physics. Well, yes, Hyarin agreed. But the laws of physics are more like suggestions. If you ask politely, sometimes they'll make exceptions. Minji pressed the button one more time. The computer dissolved and reformed into something that made several aliens jump out of their seats. It had become living tissue, a small plant with green leaves and tiny flowers growing from what had been a block of metal just minutes before. By the ancient void, breathed Veltar, you created life from dead matter. It's not really dead, Minji said. Nothing is really dead. Everything is just atoms that are taking a break from being alive. When you ask them to wake up and be a plant, they remember how to do it. The chamber erupted in noise as thousands of aliens began talking at once. Some were excited, others were frightened, and many were simply confused. Taehyung noticed the growing panic and touched Jinwoo's arm. Captain, maybe we should tone this down a bit. They seem upset. Jinwoo nodded and raised his hands for quiet. I apologize if our demonstration was too much. We can show you simpler technology if you prefer. Veltar's skin had turned a pale gray color. No, please continue. We need to understand what we are seeing here. Thisara flew down from her seat using her insect wings. She landed near the plant that had once been metal and studied it with various scanning devices. "This is impossible," she muttered. "My instruments show this plant has a complete DNA structure. It has roots, leaves, a functioning circulatory system. But it was created from iron and carbon in less than 30 seconds. Is that unusual?" Hyaron asked, genuinely. "Our children learn to do this in basic science class." "Your children can transmute elements?" Thaisa'ara's voice went very high. "Only simple things. They're not allowed to work with dangerous materials until they're older." Commander Quindos had been very quiet during all of this. Finally, he spoke. "Humans, may I ask about your weapons?" Jinwoo looked uncomfortable. "We don't really have weapons. We found that most problems can be solved without fighting." "But surely you have some way to defend yourselves." Minji held up her tool. "This can solve most problems. If something is trying to hurt us, we can ask it to stop." "You ask your enemies to stop attacking you?" "Usually they do. Most things don't really want to cause harm. They just get confused sometimes." Quindos's tentacles twisted with frustration. "What if they refuse to stop?" "Then we ask them to go somewhere else. If they still won't listen, we might ask them to become something more peaceful." "You would transmute enemy soldiers into plants?" Minji looked shocked. "Oh no, we would never hurt anyone like that. We might ask their weapons to become flowers or their ships to become park benches, but we would never change a living person without their permission." "What if they have antimatter weapons or reality distortion bombs?" "Those sound dangerous?" Hyaron said thoughtfully. "We would probably ask the antimatter to become regular matter instead, and reality distortion sounds like someone is being rude to space-time. We'd ask them to apologize and fix what they broke." The chamber had grown very quiet again. Every alien was listening to this conversation with growing amazement and terror. Veltar finally spoke. "Humans, are you saying that you can convince antimatter to stop being antimatter?" "If we asked politely, yes, though we've never actually tried it. We don't really encounter many hostile situations." "And you believe you could convince space-time itself to ignore weapons designed to tear it apart?" "Space-time is usually very reasonable," Jinwoo said. "We've found that most problems come from not communicating clearly with the universe around us." Thaisa'ara had been studying the plant with increasingly frantic measurements. She suddenly looked up at the humans with all 6 of her compound eyes wide open. "This plant," she said slowly, "is not just alive. According to my scans, it's healthier and more genetically perfect than any plant in our biological databases. You didn't just create life. You created better life than nature itself produces." Minji smiled. "Well, we asked it to be the best plant it could be. Most things try their hardest when someone believes in them." The Grand Assembly Chamber fell, completely silent. 1,000 different species, representing 12,000 years of galactic civilization, sat in stunned quiet as they tried to process what they had witnessed. Finally, Veltar spoke in a whisper that the translation system barely picked up. "What exactly are you?" 3 days had passed since the demonstration, and the Harmony's edge was traveling toward the frontier sectors of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had asked the humans to visit some outer colonies to show their goodwill. What they didn't know was that Commander Quindos had other plans. Jinwoo sat in his captain's chair, reading reports about the worlds they would visit. His crew was relaxed and happy after their successful meeting with the Council. They had no idea that 200 alien warships were moving to intercept them. Far behind them, hidden in the shadow of a gas giant, Quindos watched his fleet prepare for attack. His tentacles drummed nervously on his command chair as he reviewed the battle plan one more time. "Are you certain this is necessary?" asked Captain Zethko, one of his ship commanders. "The humans seem peaceful." "That's exactly why we must test them," Quindos replied. "Did you see what they did in the assembly chamber? They violated every law of physics we know. If they can turn metal into living plants, what could they do to our worlds, our people? Zethko's scales shifted color to show his doubt. But they said they don't have weapons. They also said they could convince antimatter to stop being antimatter. Do you want to bet the safety of the galaxy on their good intentions? The fleet consisted of the Empire's most advanced warships. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. They had quantum torpedoes that could tear holes in space itself, antimatter cannons that could vaporize entire cities, and reality distortion fields that could make enemy ships forget how to exist. "Begin the attack," Quindos ordered. "Make it look like pirates. If the humans survive, we'll know how dangerous they really are." On the Harmony's edge, Hyerin was studying star charts when her instrument started beeping. She frowned at the readings and called out to the bridge. "Captain, I'm detecting a large fleet approaching us. 200 ships coming from multiple directions." Jinwoo looked up from his reports. "Friendly ships? I don't think so. They're powering up weapons and moving into attack formation." Tai Hyung checked his communication panel. "I'm not receiving any messages from them. Usually pirates demand surrender before attacking." Minji walked onto the bridge carrying a cup of tea. "What's all the excitement about?" "We're about to be attacked by 200 warships," Jinwoo said. Minji nearly spilled her tea. 200? That seems like overkill for one little ship. "Should I prepare evasive maneuvers?" asked Tae Hyung. Jinwoo thought for a moment. "Let's try talking to them first. Maybe this is a misunderstanding." Before anyone could respond, the space around them lit up with weapons fire. Quantum torpedoes streaked toward their ship while antimatter beams carved through the vacuum. The attack was coordinated and overwhelming, designed to destroy them before they could react. But nothing happened. The torpedoes simply stopped moving when they got close to the Harmony's edge. They hung in space like frozen fireworks, their warheads inactive. The antimatter beams curved around the human ship as if space itself was protecting it. "Well, that's inconvenient," Minji said, sipping her tea. "Someone is trying to hurt us." Hyerin checked her instruments. "The weapons are still active, but they can't seem to reach us. It's like there's an invisible barrier around our ship." "There is," Minji explained. "I activated standard safety protocols when I heard we were being attacked. The ship's systems are asking the universe to keep dangerous things away from us." Jinwoo stared at her. "Our ship can ask the universe for protection?" "Of course. It would be very rude for the universe to let us get hurt when we're just trying to be friendly." Outside, the alien fleet was in chaos. Captain Zethko was shouting orders at his crew while his weapons officer frantically pressed buttons. "Sir, our quantum torpedoes have stopped responding. They're just floating in space. Switch to antimatter cannons." "The antimatter is refusing." "To fire, sir! The system says the target doesn't exist." "What do you mean it doesn't exist? I can see the human ship right there." "The computer insists there's nothing to shoot at. It keeps displaying error messages I've never seen before." Similar problems were happening across the entire fleet. Ships that had functioned perfectly for decades were suddenly malfunctioning in impossible ways. Weapons wouldn't fire, engines wouldn't respond to commands, and computer systems displayed messages in languages that didn't exist. Commander Quindos was becoming desperate. "Activate the reality distortion fields. If we can't destroy them with weapons, we'll make them cease to exist." The reality distortion generators powered up, preparing to tear holes in space-time itself. These were the Empire's most dangerous weapons, capable of erasing entire star systems from existence. But when they activated, something very strange happened. On the Harmony's edge, Minji suddenly looked annoyed. "Oh, now that's just rude. Someone is trying to break reality." "Break reality?" Jinwoo asked. "They're using some kind of device to damage space-time. That's very inconsiderate." She pulled out her engineering tool and pressed a few buttons. "I'm asking the universe to fix itself and to please stop these people from being so destructive." In the alien fleet, the reality distortion generators simply shut down. Not broken, not overloaded. They just politely turned themselves off. When the operators tried to restart them, their control panels displayed a message. This function has been temporarily disabled for universal safety reasons. What is happening to our ships? Quindos demanded. His science officer was studying readings that made no sense. Sir, it appears that our weapons systems have decided they don't want to work. The computers are treating the human ship as if it were protected by the laws of physics themselves. That's impossible. Yes, sir, but that seems to be exactly what's happening. On the Harmony's edge, Jinwoo opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His voice was calm and friendly. Hello there. It looks like you're having some technical difficulties with your ships. Would you like us to help? The silence from the alien fleet stretched for several minutes. Finally, Captain Zethko responded, his voice filled with confusion and fear. Human ship, what have you done to our vessels? We haven't done anything to your ships, Jinwoo replied honestly. We just asked the universe to keep us safe. Your weapon systems seem to have agreed that attacking us would be wrong. You asked the universe? It's very reasonable when you approach it politely, Hyeron added, leaning over to speak into the communication system. The universe generally doesn't like it when people try to hurt each other for no good reason. Commander Quindos took control of the communication. Humans, we demand you release our ships immediately. Your ships aren't captured, Minji said patiently. They're just confused about why you want them to hurt people. If you explain to them that this was all a misunderstanding, they'll probably start working again. We will not negotiate with you. That's okay, Jinwoo said. You don't have to negotiate. Just stop trying to attack us, and everything should go back to normal. There was another long silence. Then, reluctantly, Quindos gave the order to power down all weapons. The moment the alien ships stopped targeting the Harmony's edge, their systems began working normally again. Engines responded to commands, computers stopped displaying error messages, and weapons came back online. But none of the alien crews felt like using those weapons anymore. This is impossible, Quindos whispered. We had enough firepower to destroy entire worlds, and they stopped us without firing a single shot. Sir, his science officer said quietly, according to our sensors, the humans never activated any defensive systems. They don't appear to have shields, armor, or weapons of any kind. Then how did they protect themselves? I believe, sir, that they convinced our weapons not to work. Captain Zethko's voice came over the communication system, addressing the humans directly. How did you know we weren't really pirates? Taehyung answered. Your ships are too organized and your attack patterns are too perfect. Real pirates would be more chaotic. Also, your weapons are military grade, not the kind of equipment pirates usually have. You knew this was a test? We suspected, Jinwoo admitted. We're not upset about it. You were probably worried about what we might do with our technology. That's understandable. The alien fleet began forming up to depart, their crews shaken by what they had experienced. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Commander Quindos sent one final message to the human ship. Humans, we owe you an apology. Our attack was dishonorable. No hard feelings, Jinwoo replied. Everyone gets worried sometimes. We hope we can be friends in the future. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, the crew of the Harmony's edge sat quietly on their bridge. Well, Minji said finally, that was interesting. I hope word doesn't get around that we're some kind of threat. Hyeron was studying the readings from the battle. I think it might be too late for that. We just made 200 warships completely helpless without even trying. We weren't trying to make them helpless, Jinwoo pointed out. We were just trying not to get hurt. I know that, Hyeron said, but I don't think they see the difference. Taehyung was monitoring alien communication channels. Captain, there's a lot of chatter about us across the Empire. Word of what happened here is spreading fast. What are they saying? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in 12,000 years of recorded history. Representatives from nearly 1,000 species had gathered on Nexus Prime, and the massive assembly chamber buzzed with worried conversations in hundreds of different languages. Council Prime Veltar stood at his podium, his 4 eyes scanning the crowd. His skin had remained a pale gray color for 3 days, ever since news of the Battle of the Frontier had reached them. 200 of the Empire's most advanced warships had been rendered completely helpless by 4 humans who claimed they had done nothing at all. "Order! Order!" Veltar called out, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "We are here to discuss the human situation and determine our response." Commander Quindos sat in the military section, his tentacles coiled tightly around his chair. He had barely spoken since returning from his failed attack. The shame of his defeat weighed heavily on him. Thisara flew to the central speaking platform, her insect wings creating a soft humming sound. As the Empire's chief scientist, her analysis would be crucial to understanding what they were dealing with. "Honored delegates," she began, "I have spent the last 72 hours studying all available data on human technology. What we discovered changes everything we thought we knew about the universe." She activated a holographic display showing the battle recordings. The images showed quantum torpedoes simply stopping in space, antimatter beams curving away from their target, and reality distortion fields shutting themselves down. "At first, we assumed the humans had some kind of advanced defensive system," Thisara continued. "But our detailed analysis shows something far more disturbing. The humans didn't block our attacks. They convinced the universe itself to ignore them." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. A delegate from the Crystalline Confederacy stood up, his body glowing with agitation. "That's impossible. The laws of physics cannot be negotiated with." "That's what we believed," Thisara agreed. "But watch this recording from their demonstration 3 days ago." The hologram showed Minji Lee transforming a block of metal into a living plant. The display zoomed in to show the atomic level, where individual particles were rearranging themselves in patterns that should have been impossible. According to our understanding of physics, this transformation should require the energy output of a small star. Instead, it used less power than a simple flashlight. The atoms didn't fight against being changed. They cooperated. "How?" demanded a representative from the Silicon Brotherhood. "Because the humans asked them to." The chamber fell silent. Thousands of aliens stared at Thisara as if she had lost her mind. "I know how it sounds," she said, "but the evidence is clear. Humans have discovered something we missed in 12 millennia of scientific advancement. They don't work within the laws of physics. They communicate with them." At that moment, the humans were announced. Jinwoo Park entered the chamber with his crew, walking calmly to the central platform despite the thousands of alien eyes watching their every move. Veltar's voice was carefully controlled. "Humans of Earth, thank you for coming. We have many questions about your encounter with our ships." "We're happy to answer anything we can," Jinwoo replied. "Though I'm not sure we'll be much help. We're still learning about your technology ourselves." Thisara stepped forward. "Humans, I need to understand something fundamental. How do you make atoms change from one element to another without massive energy input?" Hyaron looked thoughtful. "We don't really make them change. We ask them to change, and they usually agree." "But atoms are just particles. They don't have consciousness." "Are you sure about that?" Hyaron asked gently. "Have you ever tried talking to them?" "Talking to atoms is impossible. So was flying between stars, until someone figured out how to do it," Minji pointed out. "Just because something seems impossible doesn't mean it actually is." A delegate from the Machine Collective spoke up, his robotic voice echoing through the chamber. "Define talking to atoms." "It's hard to explain," Hyaron admitted. "It's not like talking to a person. It's more like having a conversation with reality itself. You learn to understand what different parts of the universe want to do, and then you ask them politely if they'd be willing to do something else. Instead, The universe doesn't want anything, protested Thaisara. How do you know? Taehyung asked. When was the last time you asked it? The question hung in the air like a challenge. 12,000 years of scientific tradition said that the universe was just a collection of particles following fixed rules. The idea that it might have preferences or feelings was absurd, but the evidence was impossible to ignore. Humans, Veltar said slowly. Could you demonstrate this, communication with reality? Of course, Hyaron said. She looked around the chamber and pointed to the air itself. May I show you something simple? At Veltar's nod, Hyaron held up her hand. She seemed to concentrate for a moment, then spoke to the empty space in front of her. Hello, gravity. Could you please flow upward in this small area for just a moment? Nothing happened for several seconds. Then suddenly dust and small debris began falling upward toward the ceiling. A sphere of reversed gravity had formed around Hyaron's hand, about 3 feet wide. The alien delegates gasped and pointed. Some jumped out of their seats in shock. Gravity doesn't work that way, shouted someone from the crowd. Usually not, Hyaron agreed. But I asked nicely, and it agreed to make an exception. Just for a little while. She spoke to the air again. Thank you, gravity. You can go back to normal now. The reversed gravity stopped immediately. Dust settled back down toward the floor, as if nothing had happened. That should be impossible, Thaisara whispered. A lot of things should be impossible, Minji said, but we found out that impossible is really just another word for nobody has asked the right question yet. Commander Quindos finally spoke up, his voice heavy with confusion and fear. Humans, what are your military capabilities? How many worlds could you destroy if you chose to? The humans looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Why would we want to destroy worlds? Jinwoo asked. For conquest, for resources, for territory. We have plenty of space in our own solar system, Taehyung said. And if we need resources, we can just ask atoms to become whatever we need. But what if another species attacked you? What would you do? We'd ask them to stop, Hyaron said simply, and if they refused. We'd ask their weapons to stop working, Minji added. Like what happened with your ships. And if that didn't work, humans exchanged glances, considering the question seriously. I suppose, Hyaron said thoughtfully, we could ask their entire military to become something more peaceful, maybe turn their warships into gardens or playgrounds. You could transmute entire fleets, if we had to. But we'd rather just talk things out. What about planets? Could you destroy entire worlds? Well, Minji said reluctantly, we could ask a planet to become something else. Maybe turn it into a giant flower or a massive piece of art. But that would be terrible. All the people living there would lose their homes. Unless we asked the people if they wanted to become something else too, Hyaron mused. But that would be wrong. People should get to choose what they want to be. The chamber had become completely silent. 1,000 different species, representing the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, sat in stunned quiet as they processed what they were hearing. Finally, Veltar asked the question that everyone was thinking. Humans, are you gods? Jinwoo looked surprised. No, we're just people. We just learned to be polite to the universe around us. But you can rewrite the laws of physics. The laws of physics were never really laws, Hyaron explained. They're more like habits, things the universe does because it's used to doing them that way. But habits can change if you ask nicely and explain why change would be helpful. So you're saying, Thaisara said slowly, that we've spent 12,000 years assuming the universe was a machine when it's actually more like a person? More like a very big, very complicated person made up of lots of smaller persons, Minji confirmed. Every atom, every particle, every force of nature has its own personality. Some are stubborn, some are helpful, some are shy. You just have to learn how to talk to them. And human children learn this in school. Basic reality programming, yes. It's considered as important as reading and math. The assembly chamber erupted in noise as thousands of aliens began talking at once. Some were excited by the possibilities, others were terrified of the implications, and many were simply trying to understand how their entire view of existence had just been turned upside down. Veltar called for order, but his own voice was shaking. "Humans, what do you want from us?" "Nothing, really," Jinwoo said. "We'd like to be friends and learn about your cultures. Maybe we can teach you reality programming, and you can share your history and art with us." "You would teach us these abilities?" "If you want to learn. Some species might find it easier than others. It depends on how willing you are to believe that the universe is friendly and wants to help." As the session finally ended, delegates filed out of the chamber in small groups, talking in hushed tones about what they had witnessed. The Galactic Empire had just learned that everything they thought they knew about reality was wrong. 6 months had passed since the humans first arrived at Nexus Prime, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The Galactic Empire, which had remained largely unchanged for thousands of years, was now rebuilding itself around a completely new understanding of reality. Jinwoo stood on the observation deck of the new Human Galactic Cooperation Center, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried scientists, diplomats, and curious citizens who wanted to learn about reality programming. The center had been built in just 2 weeks after Minji had asked the raw materials to arrange themselves into a suitable structure. "Captain," Taehyung called from behind him, "the Crystalline Confederacy delegation has arrived. They're requesting another demonstration of temporal manipulation." Jinwoo turned around, smiling. His title had evolved from ship captain to something like chief human liaison, though he still preferred the simpler version. "Tell them Hieron will be happy to show them how to ask time to slow down, but remind them that time gets cranky if you bother it too much." The early days after the council session had been chaotic. News of humanity's abilities had spread throughout the Empire faster than hyperspace communications could carry it. Some species had panicked, fearing that humans would use their reality-bending powers to conquer the galaxy. Others had become so excited about the possibilities that they had bombarded Earth with requests for immediate help with everything from failing stars to unruly weather patterns. But as humans patiently demonstrated their approach to the universe, most aliens began to understand that these newcomers really did mean what they said. They weren't conquerors or destroyers. They were teachers who genuinely wanted to share their discoveries. Minji walked into the observation area, carrying her ever-present engineering tool and a cup of tea that somehow stayed perfectly warm without any heat source. She had become the Empire's most popular instructor, teaching basic reality programming to alien scientists who had spent centuries studying conventional physics. "How did the lesson with the Silicon Brotherhood go?" Jinwoo asked. "Pretty well," Minji replied, sipping her tea. "They're having trouble with the concept that silicon atoms have feelings, but once they accepted it, they managed to convince a computer chip to upgrade itself into a quantum processor." "Any problems?" One of them asked their entire computer network to become more intelligent, and now their ships are writing poetry. They seem happy about it, though. Through the center's windows, they could see the strangest sight in galactic history. Ships from dozens of different species were working together to build what looked like a massive garden in space. But this wasn't an ordinary garden. The plants were growing in vacuum, the flowers were made of crystallized starlight, and the trees were bearing fruit that could feed entire colonies. A group of former pirates had asked if they could turn their weapons into something more useful. With human help, they had transformed their battle fleet into the galaxy's first mobile ecosystem, creating habitable worlds for species whose home planets had been destroyed by natural disasters. "Any word from Commander Quindos?" Jinwoo asked. Taehyung checked his communication panel. "He's on his way back from the Outer Rim. His latest report says he successfully negotiated peace between 3 warring species by asking their weapons to become musical instruments instead." The transformation of Commander Quindos had been one of the most surprising developments. After his failed attack on the humans, he had been consumed with shame and curiosity. Instead of hiding from his failure, he had requested to learn reality, programming himself. It turned out that his military mindset, once applied to peacekeeping instead of warfare, made him incredibly effective at solving conflicts. He had learned to convince aggressive species that cooperation was more rewarding than conquest, often by demonstrating how their weapons could become tools for creation instead of destruction. Hyarin entered the observation deck, followed by a group of alien students who were excitedly chattering about their lesson. Among them was Thesara, the former chief scientist who had now become one of humanity's most enthusiastic pupils. How did they do with gravity manipulation? Minji asked. 3 of them managed to create localized gravity wells, Hyarin reported proudly, and Thesara successfully convinced light to bend around her, making her temporarily invisible. Thesara's compound eyes sparkled with excitement. I never imagined that photons could be so cooperative once you explain what you're trying to accomplish. The key is understanding that everything in the universe wants to be helpful, Hyarin explained to the group. Particles, forces, even space and time itself, they all want to contribute to something meaningful. We just have to show them how. One of the students, a young member of the Aquatic Alliance, raised a tentacle. Teacher, Hyarin, my people are having trouble with our dying sun. Could we ask it to burn more efficiently? That's a great question, Hyarin replied. Stars are usually very willing to adjust their output if you ask politely and explain why it's important. But it's better to work with stellar engineers who specialize in star communication. We'll arrange for some experts to visit your system. The idea of stellar engineers would have been absurd 6 months ago. Now the Empire had dozens of teams working to revitalize failing stars, calm aggressive black holes, and even convince asteroids to rearrange themselves into useful orbital structures. As the student group dispersed to practice their lessons, Veltar arrived on the observation deck. The Council Prime's skin had returned to healthier colors, though he still seemed amazed by the changes happening around him. Jinwoo, he said, I have news from the Outer Territories. The Hive Collective has formally requested to become a human protectorate. Jinwoo looked surprised. The entire collective? That's 300 worlds. They were impressed by how your people helped them deal with their resource shortages. Apparently, teaching their worker drones to convince raw minerals to refine themselves has revolutionized their entire civilization. We didn't do much, Jinwoo said modestly. We just showed them that atoms are usually happy to help if you ask them the right way. Didn't do much, Veltar repeated with amusement. Jinwoo, in 6 months your species has solved conflicts that have lasted for centuries, turned failing worlds into paradises, and taught us that the universe itself is our ally rather than a cold, uncaring machine. Through the observation windows, they watched as a massive alien cargo ship gracefully transformed itself into a beautiful space station. The ship's AI had decided it preferred being a home for travelers rather than just carrying freight. The Mechanical Federation wants to join the Protectorate program too, Veltar continued. Their artificial intelligences are apparently fascinated by the concept that they can ask their own programming to evolve in new directions. Any problems with species that can't adapt to reality programming? Taehyung asked. Surprisingly few, Veltar replied. It seems that most intelligent life has an intuitive understanding of communication and cooperation. The biggest challenge is getting them to believe that the universe wants to help them. Minji nodded thoughtfully. That's the hardest part for most species. You've all spent so long thinking that existence is a struggle against uncaring forces, that it's difficult to accept that those forces are actually friendly. A soft chime indicated another incoming message. Taehyung checked his panel and smiled. It's from Earth. The first exchange students are arriving tomorrow. 50 young humans who want to learn about galactic culture, and 200 alien students who want to study advanced reality programming. How are the alien students adapting to Earth? Jinwoo asked. According to the reports, they're amazed by how naturally human children work with reality. Apparently, a 7-year-old human girl taught a graduate-level physicist from the Crystal Gardens how to make flowers grow in mathematical patterns. Hiren laughed. Children are often the best teachers. They haven't learned to doubt that impossible. Things are possible. As evening approached on Nexus Prime, the observation deck filled with a warm, golden light. But this wasn't from the planet's sun. A group of human students had asked the local space dust to glow softly, creating a gentle illumination that was more beautiful than any artificial lighting. You know what I love most about all this? Veltar said, looking out at the transformed galaxy around them. What's that? Jinwoo asked. For 12,000 years, we believed that intelligence meant learning to work within limitations. We thought wisdom came from accepting what was impossible and finding ways to succeed despite those restrictions. He gestured toward the glowing space garden, the poetry-writing spaceships, and the dozens of species working together on projects that had once been considered impossible. But you humans taught us something better. True intelligence isn't about working within limitations. It's about politely asking those limitations to step aside when they're no longer helpful. Minji raised her teacup in a mock toast. To the universe, for being so understanding about our strange requests. And to humans, Thisara added, for teaching us that reality is much friendlier than we ever imagined. As the group shared a moment of quiet satisfaction, watching the impossible become routine throughout the galaxy, Jinwoo reflected on